from there. And everybody happy? Welcome. Welcome to the Democratic Services Committee of Friday the 12th of March. This is video conferences going out to the public, so be on your best behaviour if you can. I know it's sometimes difficult, but there we go. Okay, thanks very much for that. Right, we've had apologies from Hugh Irvine. He might be late. He's got an appointment, so but we are quorum, so we can get on with the that. We haven't had apologies from Joan Butterfield, so whether Joan is struggling to get in, we've not heard. I don't know, so we'll just see how we go with that. Okay. Okay. Welcome, Gary. It's nice to see you. Perhaps we'll go on to the second agenda item, which is declaration of interest. And do you want to just go through that for us, please?
Yes, Chair. I'll see if I can remember my script without having a script. So members will be aware of the requirement under the Code of Conduct to declare an interest in any matter in which under the Code of Conduct they have a personal interest. Members who have a personal interest must go on to consider whether or not they have a prejudicial interest, which is that where a member of the public with knowledge of the relevant interest judgment of public interest. Personal interest only must declare it, but then can take part in the debate in any vote. A member who has a personal and prejudicial interest must declare the interest and must leave the meeting for the duration of the discussion of that business. Members who declare an interest that has not previously been declared or recorded should record that in writing on the declaration of interest form that is available from Democratic Services.
Very good. Yes, not bad at all. We missed a little bit of that, Gary, but I think everybody understands. They've been through it enough now at various committees. So, so thanks very much. So we'll go on to. Are there? Oh yeah. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay. If any come up during the period of the meeting, then just indicate, and we'll deal with it as we go along. Okay, thanks. So we go on to agenda item 3, which is urgent items, and there aren't any. Okay, thanks for that. So agenda item 4 is the minutes. Just bear with me 1 minute. Okay. So that was the minutes dated the Democratic Services Committee held via WebEx on Friday the 2nd of October 2020. So we'll go through page 5, page 6, which was the COVID recovery plan for Democratic Services. Seems a long way back now, doesn't it? The annual report of the Council Scrutiny Committee, which is page 7. We've got the agenda item 7, which was the independent remuneration panel. That was for Wales for 2021. That's also on our agenda today. There's an update on that. We've got agenda item 8, which is the annual review of political balance and appointment of scrutiny chairs. That's on page 9. Committee timetable, agenda 9, and the forward work programme on page 10. Okay. Is there any, are there any items before we take it forward that need to be discussed from the last minutes? No? Okay, everybody content with it. Can I have a seconder to say that these are a true record of the previous meeting? Please, somebody to put that forward. Christine and Gwyneth. Okay, thank you very much. You're happy with that? Right, thank you very much for that. We'll go on to agenda item 5, which is To receive a report from the Democratic Services Manager, copy enclosed, reviewing and updating the terms of reference for the member area groups. It's the member area group terms of reference, and it's on your agendas of page 11 to 28. And Steve's going to take us through that. So do you want to go ahead, Steve? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. We're looking to see about the member area groups. There have been a lot of queries recently about what the groups can do, how they should operate, what the rules are for members and for officers within the groups. And the existing terms of reference is quite light. It goes back to 2012. It doesn't have much or anything, in fact, in the way of the standing orders to sort of for members and for chairs to actually control or regulate the debate, and for certainty about what sort of powers MAGs do or don't have. And there does seem to have been different, because there are 6 different member area groups whose membership generally doesn't overlap. Some of the member area groups may have taken different viewpoints on different ways of doing things, which makes it difficult for advice to be given on what a member area group can or can't do and what the others do. The Appendix 1, which I'd like, if you'll permit, to go through sort of page by page in a moment, is my draft. So feel free to change it. The member area groups are a members group, but it's my first attempt anyway at putting together something which is consistent with the larger standing orders of the council, consistent with the remit set up originally for the MAGs, and hopefully give some clarity about some of the things which we have now, such as the ability for people to record or video meetings and share them afterwards, which wouldn't have been an issue in 2012 so much. Excuse me, but which frequently, I think from now on, will be more of an issue. It is part of the consultation. This is the first step in it, so we hope that this committee can give its views. I can reshape the draft. It will be going elsewhere. We have been talking about it as officers for some of the reasons to help member area groups get the work items they want and get the support it needs. It will be going to SLT at a future meeting, so your comments here will feed into the draft. We'll want SLT to have a look at it as well, because they provide the senior level advice and support. There's one SLT member appointed to each member area group. If we come to a point where we've got a draft that looks viable, it will go to the Corporate Governance and Audit Committee, because it will need to change the constitution. And it will then go to council at some point for members to amend and finally approve on. So hopefully this isn't going to be seen as a bureaucratic exercise. The terms of reference are there to answer the questions when they arise. If you'd like to go down to Appendix 1, please, which is on page 17, starts from page 17.
Can I just come in?
Yeah, go ahead, Gwyneth. Yeah.
No, it's just that correction right at the very beginning. The second line, whole area of the county.
Oh, right. Yeah. Should be area, Steve, not R. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gwyneth. If anybody sees others, please point them out, because I say this is my draft, and sometimes when you're reading your own draft, you're blind to the typos as well. I will also point out that Rhian did spot on the attached maps that they need looking at. They're the original maps, and I hadn't noticed that some of the areas shown are not shown in the right MAG. They're obvious errors, but we'll have a new map drawn. So it's for illustration. They're the original ones. So in terms of page 18, the first bit is consistent with the current position. We've got those 6 member area groups. It does clarify just under the bullet points that they're not decision-making bodies, because council hasn't given them any decision-making powers as such. But it does clarify that they are important, and they've got important advisory and consultative functions. And they are looking at local service provision and activities or impacts. Obviously, there are some items which regularly go to MAGs. I'm thinking of capital expenditure, capital programs for roads and such things, where there's an agreement between the MAGs and the service bringing the items. Just for clarity, that's not the MAGs making the decision, but that is the consultation, and where there's an agreement, a meeting of minds, then often that becomes the decision, which will be taken by somebody else, either delegated to an officer, delegated to a lead member, or going through a committee somewhere. But that's an important role where there's lots of agreement, lots of decisions with a small d made at MAGs, but they don't actually have delegated decision powers themselves. I found it a little bit more difficult to put down in words what is not within a MAG's remit. There have been issues and questions arising recently amongst members and MAGs and officers about what is or is not a MAG remit. It was left, I think, originally to be fairly vague and wide, so as not to constrain unnecessarily. It also does include liaising and doing business, discussing with external bodies. So it's not merely an internal, a MAG isn't merely an internal group. It may be that the local health board or the voluntary sector, citizens' advice may well become part of a MAG's business where they impact on local MAG area issues. That's perfectly valid, and I've tried to explain that there, but it may be that the wording can be clarified as we go on. What may not be within a MAG remit, perhaps something which is more suitable for a scrutiny committee, in that it has little direct relevance to any particular area, but it might have more relevance to a wider county area, or it might be particularly strategic, or it might even be regional and not particularly a Denbighshire issue. I think there would be, it's a grey area, I admit, but it may be that it doesn't fit neatly within the idea of what the MAGs were set up for. And I'd appreciate any views. And obviously, as we go through to council to make a decision on a final terms of reference, hopefully we can be clear about what is a MAG issue and what isn't, without being too constraining or bureaucratic, I guess. Please jump in for any of these as we roll through it. Okay, I'll just move on. The next part on page 19, membership. This is an issue which has come up recently, and I've been asked to give advice on it, and the advice I've given has been challenged because of the practice in some of the MAGs. So, for example, when the Democratic Services took over support for the MAG membership, we were under the impression that each MAG has a core membership, and then there were some members whose parts of their wards were in a MAG area who would be invited and could participate fully, but wouldn't be perhaps considered as the full membership unless they actually attended the meeting. And that's how we've reflected the arrangements so far. The good point, I suppose, is that some members, they're only a small number. Some members do attend 2 MAGs because of their ward overlapping 2 MAG areas. Some are mostly in one MAG area and go to that main MAG and not the other. And the way we've configured it is that on the internal side, the intranet side, membership at MAGs or not attending MAGs for those members, the attendance statistics there won't be harmed by not attending the second MAG meeting. I may not have explained that that clearly, but so it was done for that. So if anybody looked at the attendance statistics and somebody had the expectation to go to 2 MAG meetings but was only attending their main one, that second MAG's non-attendance wouldn't count against them in the attendance statistics. We can still do that because obviously it would be unfair, I think, to penalise members on their attendance statistics. But I think we're trying to clarify that any member who has a ward within 2 MAG areas is fully entitled to go to both those MAG meetings and fully participate, and as it's clarified further down, vote fully, take any role on that MAG if they're appointed to, chair or vice chair, be appointed to represent the MAG, either of the MAGs. So that issue has come up recently. It was a bit different to my understanding, but obviously there has been perhaps precedent set within the MAGs themselves, and I've hoped to write these down in this draft terms of reference. Again, I'll stop if anybody's got any comments or wants to challenge any of this.
Can I come in there, Steve?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, because it does affect me, and I know it affects a couple of others. Yeah, it's a confusing one, and because of where I've obviously represent 3 community councils. 2 of those community councils, sort of their main town would be considered Denbigh, and then the 3rd community council, their main town would be Ruthin, which is I know where, and Mervyn Parry is the same, which is where the sort of issue recently has arisen. So I appreciate how it's all come, but if you look at, and I know you said the maps might be wrong, but it's worth raising, and I might be bumbling on here, but I'm going to try to explain this in the best way possible. By looking at the map there, Cyfyllog, which if you were just Cyfyllog Community Council, you would be on Ruthin Mag, because that's the town that Cyfyllog is closest to. But on the maps, Cyfyllog is in the Denbigh Mag area. So therefore, if you look at that map, my ward is wholly in the Denbigh Mag. So therefore, by reading through the terms of reference, it would not, none of my ward is in the Ruthin Mag. Therefore, I shouldn't be on it as the also invited, but as it stands, I am on it and I am a voting member of it. I'm just on the also invited. But if you look at the map, none of my ward is in the Ruthin Mag, and it's the same with Mervyn. And I know things like street scene and things for ease, even though Cyfyllog is obviously nearer Ruthin, the Cyfyllog area is still looked after by the person in charge of the Denbigh Mag. So I might be making it more confusing, but it is quite confusing. And I think we need to just really get that clarity with those communities like Cyfyllog, and I think with Mervyn, I'm not sure which one it is with him, whether it's the rail one. That on the maps they're in the Denbigh one, but they're closer to the Ruthin one. So it's just to figure out exactly how we can do that. Does that make any sense? What I've just said.
Yeah, I think it does, and Steve's going to come back on that. Graham, you want to come in as well? Is that relevant to this as well? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to come in, and then Steve can, if you're happy, Steve, to deal with both. Yep. Yeah. Okay, Graham.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, Dee Valley has got 4 members in the MAG, and we have, I think, 2 or 3 other members from further north invited. But 4 members is not very many to have on a MAG, and there's a lot of office time goes into it, and I just wonder if it would be possible to change those boundaries. I thought I'd seen when I read the report last night that it said how you came to those areas on the map, but I can't find it again, and I just wonder if there would be any, I don't know how big the Ruthin Mag is in terms of members, but maybe we could claim a little bit more further north and have more members attending our MAG from the Ruthin Mag. But it's about this equality of size, isn't it, between the mags that I was concerned about, and also having a good rounded debate as well, because sometimes there's only me and Mel there, and we agree anyway, and it makes it a short meeting, which is not a bad thing, but it's nice to have a different perspective from different areas as well. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Steve, come back in. Well, Andrew, you want to come in? So
not on this specific. If you want Steve to respond to those, I have another couple of points besides those.
Okay, we'll let Steve come in, and then we'll come back to you with your points. Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Chair. For Councillor Tim's points, yes, it's small. Obviously, we'll have an extra. We'll have a 3rd member for you shortly, a 4th member for you shortly with the by-election. So it's been even more difficult, isn't it, with a small MAG meeting. There are 2 members, I think, from memory, from the Ruthin MAG who can attend Dee Valley MAG meetings. And as I was referring to earlier, in those cases, I don't think by and large that they do attend. but there are no changes suggested in this draft to stop that. I think we could look at seeing whether we can extend the net if members are generally in favour of that. I think Ruthin Mag has probably 8 or 9 members, doesn't it? Something like that in total. So again, if we moved a couple of people to say Dee Valley, there might be some difficulties. They would have to probably be in the south of the Ruthin area group, and it might strip away some of Ruthin Mag's membership to an unacceptable point. But that's a matter entirely for members. Maybe there's something we can do perhaps to entice the members that are entitled currently to attend Dee Valley meetings, which would put your membership really up to 6, which is quite good, isn't it, for the area? But obviously I'm here to take your comments and suggestions. Those are just some of the points that come to mind immediately. For Councillor Welsh, yes, the maps need looking at. I wasn't involved in the putting together of the MAG, so I don't know on the rationale of how some areas where the ward area itself is totally shown within one MAG area, but there's an influence on that area from a nearby town, a strong influence, and so obviously you're then able to take part. Not suggesting any changes to that arrangement, certainly, but maybe we can clarify where it happens for the future, if you like, maybe by including the wards such as your ward, where you will be in both MAGs, you wish to be in both MAGs. And the same for Councillor Marston, of course, who's able to attend 2 MAG meetings. So perhaps we can clarify that it does happen if you're not suggesting that there are changes to that arrangement.
Yeah, no, I think actually that makes most sense to actually just to actually write down the wards that it does affect, because it won't be that many, to actually say this. Yeah, the councillor for the Llanrhaeadr and Hymych ward will be a full member of Denbigh MAG, but can attend the Ruthin MAG. But I mean, I'm just thinking in the future, you know, for example, if my ward was represented by somebody who lived in Bontychel, which is a mile from Ruthin, their choice would probably to always, oh, I can hear myself twice. It would be to go to the Ruthin. They probably attend the Ruthin MAG possibly more than the Denbigh MAG. So it's just to make that sort of make that allowable. And I think, yeah, Christine's obviously ward as well, and Mervyn. But yeah, if we actually named them, I think that would be really good, wouldn't it? And make it very, very clear. Thanks.
Okay, everybody comfortable with that at the moment, and you're happy, Steve, at the moment? Yes. Yeah, okay. And Andrew, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just a couple of points at your start, actually, about consultation. I think it'd be a good idea that we actually consulted the MAGs about this. I mean, for the whole time that I've been chair on the MAG, it's been on a wing and a prayer, assumed what's going on. And I think it'd be no harm that they're made aware of this. That's the first point. And then the second point about what is not included in the items for consideration. I agree that those of a more general nature are for the scrutinies, but when you get down to downright specific items like the toilets being open at a specific time or a particular bend that is dangerous, I've tended to take the conclusion that that is too specific for the general nature of the MAG. Am I right?
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Yes, consulting the MAGs. Yes, we've taken advantage of this meeting being here today. Democratic Services Committee is the right one to consult with at some point, but it only meets twice a year. And so this was an opportune moment. It also gives us a chance to get your view as a committee on the structure of the MAGs before we go to each MAG, which might have some variances in, which we'll have to take into account. I can certainly take this draft, the draft we come with out of this meeting, to each MAG meeting, if that's what you're asking for. That's not a problem. and we can get their feedback. It will then, I suppose, naturally come together again when we take it to another single committee, the Corporate Governance Committee, and then, of course, the full council, where everybody will have their, all members will be able to have their say and to vote for it or not. So yes, we can take it to for consultation with the MAGs. That's
Thank you.
Specific items, it's a tricky one, isn't it? And there's lots of grey in this. Because they're not decision-making bodies, like the scrutiny committees generally, it means that you can consider so many things, which for a decision-making committee, you just look to see whether they've got power to do it. And if you haven't, it doesn't go there by and large. Here, these are consultative. The current terms of reference is very, very wide. I think it's probably coming down to a discussion on the individual item. The chair's view is important. The senior leadership team representative may have advice on whether it would fit neatly with that sort of local item. And I think it would probably come by a case-by-case basis. It's possibly easier to see where it's a larger issue than a MAGs, because it affects all the MAGs, or it affects North Wales or even the UK or something like that. And if a MAG wants to look at it, maybe perhaps that's not so appropriate. I would emphasise that from the beginning, as far as I'm aware, it has been up to the MAGs to determine their work programmes. And the endeavour here is just to get some sort of consistency and clarity, so that members and officers know what they're working to generally. But I think if you did see an issue for your area and you really thought it was a MAG issue, if you can make the case for it in your MAG meeting, taking advice from the SLT rep into consideration, then it will appear on your work programmes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. If we go down then from membership, the Chair and Vice Chair, these bits are just some of the normal standing orders you'd expect to see in a terms of reference, which aren't there at the moment. And they're just to avoid arguments in any future meeting. So appointment Chair and Vice Chair, normal arrangements, I suppose. Voting, again, it clarifies they don't have delegated decision-making powers, but other than things like appointing their chairs, agreeing their work programme and so on. But there are lots of small D decisions that need to be made and may need to be voted on. Generally, we do things by consensus without a formal vote. But if there needs to be a vote, it just lays out that it's a simple majority of those present, those voting members present at the time that whatever's under consideration is put, really. The chair would have a second or casting vote. You don't have to put that in the terms of reference, but it is widely used in order to move business along. A chair, just for clarity, wouldn't have to use their second vote. But if it's in the terms of reference when it's agreed by council, they would have the ability to move business along that way. And I've just put in there, for the avoidance of doubt, all councillors representing a ward or part of a ward within a MAG area will be entitled to take part in any votes at the MAG's meetings, because that has come up recently, as we've just discussed. If you'd stop me if you need to. The next bit is quorum. We've put it at 2 voting members. A couple of the MAGs are quite large, and that might seem quite low, but obviously with D Valley with 4 members, it isn't. I have suggested that if there are only 2 voting members at a MAG, then the chair, the person presiding, won't have a casting vote, because obviously that would mean that the chair's view carried at the meeting, which seems a bit unfair. But again, that's my version of the situation. Forward work programmes.
Steve, ga I ddod I fewn ar hwnna?
Sorry, Gwyneth, yes.
Gan bod na gwahaniaeth rhwng aelodaeth pob MAG, fys fod ddim yn well I roed percentage of voting members.
Dwi ddim yn gweld pam ddyle hynny ddim yn gweithio yn dda o gwbl. So ie, os di'r aelodau yma'n hapus I ni ail sgwennu'r drafft yma I dangos hwnna, falle jyst I ystyried y peth, falle bydde hynny yn helpu'r cyfarfodydd mwy fel yn y
Ie.
ffurf satin, heb niweidio'r rhai bach fel dyffryn dyfdwy. So,
Ie.
os ydych chi ar cyfarfod yn hapus, na I newid hwnna I deud canran rhywbeth fel treon neu hanner, neu dyn ni'n gallu meddwl am hwnna, ond ie.
Treiawd, ie. Ie.
OK, ie, hapus I newid y drafft, ie.
Fi'n cynnig.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Forward work programmes, we do keep forward work programmes for you, and that obviously determines what gets to your future meetings. We have put there that clarity is a real help on this. Sometimes we do find issues, and it's not just at the MAG meetings. We've had plenty of other committees and meetings over time where sometimes issues are raised and agreed, but they're not clear to anybody outside really of the proposals as to what's actually asked for. And there is a role here for the chair of each MAG and the SLT supporting officer to really clarify when an issue is asked for, what is it suitable, but what does it mean, so that we can get you what you want back. Within this pack, and I'm just trying to quickly find it, I think it's right at the end actually, on page 27, there's a table there which tries to define what the roles are for the chair of a MAG group, for the head of service who supports MAG, and for the committee officer. I think for the chair and the head of service role, what we're meaning is that all members of a MAG should be helping those people to achieve this, but it is about getting clarity to lead on clarifying items for the forward work programme, for example, so adequately describing them. That appendix on page 27 has been to SLT, and it was circulated to the MAG chairs at the time. It's probably a couple of years ago now, because we were having some problems in identifying who will take work forward for the MAGs. They're obviously not heavily supported because there are 6 MAGs meeting every other month, and they can create quite a workload outside of the MAG meetings. And so we were aiming for some clarity as to who would do what in the meeting to make things easier, and who would take forward stuff outside of the meeting. Part of the head of service role will be to tie together complicated things that you're asking for that maybe involve different services and external agencies, and bringing them back. And I've seen that in operation at a recent MAG meeting. And part of the role of the chair, obviously, is to make sure that whatever's passed at a meeting is quite clear and adequately described. Otherwise, you may not get what you wanted when it comes back to you, for example. And so that's not part of the terms of reference. The Appendix 3 isn't part of the terms of reference. It's part of what we're trying to work to support the MAGs, but it's there for information. I don't know if there are any comments on that, Chair.
Is there any comments so far on this section? No? Okay.
That's either very good or very bad. Okay, I'm now on page 21.
Merrick, do you want to come in and please?
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Oedden ni ar goll braidd, o'n i methu dall lle oedd Steve, ond os ga I ddeud dwi'n ddau o bethau. Ydych chi wedi cyrraedd social media eto? Diolch yn sôn am recordio. Dwi'n gwybod ydych chi wedi cyrraedd fan eto, tudalen 21. Hefo'r map, mae trefnant yn ffinio ar ddimbych wrth reswm, y pentref trefnant. Felly mae'n ymddangos os o'n i'n gallu bod yn rhan o ddimbach hefyd. Ac da chi'n sôn am wneud gwaith i'r Pwyllgor, oedd o ddim yn arferiad ar ôl i ni gael pwyllgorau hefo Wrecsam a rhywbeth felly, bod pwy bynnag sy'n mynd i wneud y gwaith, bod i enw nhw ar y cofnodion ar yr ochr. Enw Steve oedd i'n wneud o, neu pwy bynnag, neu'r swyddog, oedd i fod o gwmpas y gwaith. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd.
Okay, thanks, Merrick. Respond to that, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Diolch yn fawr, Cynghorydd Davies. Ynglyn â trefnant ac ardal o gwmpas, oherwydd dydy trefniadau presennol ddim yn dangos bod yr aelod yn aelod o mag Dinbych hefyd, dwi ddim wedi ymestyn hynny. Wrth gwrs, os oes cynigion i wneud felly, bydd i fyny i aelodau dwi'n meddwl i ehangu hynny, ac nawn ni cymryd gofal o hynny wedyn. Ond ar y funud, dwi'n credu, oherwydd bod pethau hanesyddol, mae rai aelodau efo troed mewn dau mag ac eraill ddim. A dwi ddim yn siŵr am y reswm greiddiol dros penderfynu pwy oedd a pwy oedd ddim. Mae'n bosib dyn ni'n gallu cael trafodaeth mwy eang o hynny os di unrhyw aelod yn meddwl bod beth sy'n digwydd mewn ardal arall yn effeithio arnyn nhw yn benodol i wneud, ac maen nhw eisiau bod yn aelod o'r mag arall, ond dyn ni'n gallu cael y trafodaeth yn sicr. Ynglyn â, dwi'n meddwl y pwynt arall oeddech chi'n neud oedd os oeddwn ni'n yn y cofnodion roi yn y clofn ar yr ochr pwy oedd yn gwneud yr enwau. Dwi'n meddwl, dyn ni ddim yn gwneud e fel arfer, dwi'n meddwl, ond dyn ni'n gallu ailgychwyn o, sgen i ddim gwrthwynebiad i hynny, os bydd yn helpu. Weithiau, wrth gwrs, dydy ddim yn bosib deud bob tro pwy sy'n mynd i wneud, erbyn yr amser mae'n dod yn ôl. Mae'n gallu dibynnu weithiau, a ba mor cymhleth ydy'r cwestiwn neu rhywbeth mae'r mag wedi gofyn am. Yn ddiweddar yn ymwedig, fel dwi'n dallt, mae mags yn mwy cynyddol yn gofyn am pethau efo'r cyrff eraill. Ac so mae'n anodd pwy mewn cyrff eraill sy'n mynd i ddod i'r mag, pwy sy'n mynd i ofalu am hynny. So weithiau mae hynny yn anodd. So mae'n haws i ni wneud heb y clofn, ond dwi ddim yn, os mae aelodau eisiau clofn, mae'n iawn efo fi.
Okay, does the members want to make a comment? Andrew, you want to make a comment on that particular point?
Not on that particular point, no.
No, you're okay. Anybody else want to make any comments on that particular point of Merrick's? Okay, do you want to? Oh, Graham, sorry, I missed you, Graham. How could I miss you, Graham?
Quite easily, because I couldn't find the hand button. Just on that page in general, I mean, the filming one, I don't know if when you said about Councillor Merrick's comments, if you were including that in it, Alan, or if we're going to go on to that in a minute. The next two sections, filming and disturbance.
We hadn't got to that.
Okay, I'll wait till then. Yeah, okay.
Can I just interrupt a minute and just say welcome to Hugh Irving's in. Thank you. Good to see you, Hugh. Thank you. Oh, Gwyneth, you've got your hand up, and Andrew's got his hand up, and Merrick's got his hand up. So, Gwyneth, you want to come in, and then Andrew, and then Merrick. No, Merrick's waving his hand at me, so he doesn't want to speak. Gwyneth, do you want to come in?
Well, yes, I'm just going back, but you've said we haven't come to the social media and filming, and mine was going to just be a comment on the clarification of the papers being confidential or not. So, na I aros tan naw hwnna I fyny.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We're just coming on to that. which is handy. So the document distribution and access. So I'm on page 21. This is also a thing which has arisen recently. At the moment, because they are internal groups, we don't publish MAG information to the public website, but it does go to the internal website. And the links you have take you there. We automatically stamp all the documents as restricted and not for publication. It's something which we set the system up to do. So it differentiates between something which we publish on the website, which is obviously then public, and something which might not be. Having said that, MAG documents, by and large, are probably not confidential. It depends on the issue. And the draft therefore says, if members want to share something with others, just to check with the head of service in attendance if they're at a meeting, or with me outside of the meeting, and we can say in many cases that's fine. There's nothing confidential about it. However, having thought and had some feedback, once we publish this report, perhaps we could switch that the other way around. Maybe we could put the onus on officers to say when something's confidential, take the restricted marker off them. And so if something's confidential, it will say, it's not for publication, or it's not for sharing. We can't put a part 2. The part 2 thing means exempting the press and public, but they're not entitled to get this anyway as such. But a freedom of information request would free up most of the things that go to MAGs without a problem. And we wouldn't have a problem with that. So it's just how we do things routinely, and whether you would want them closed down with those watermarks saying restricted like they are now, and have to ask us if you were in doubt, or whether you want it to go the other way and for officers to say, you can't share this, and otherwise you'll assume that it's okay to go to anyone.
Okay. Does anybody want to make any comment on that? Andrew, you had your hand up earlier and I missed you, I think.
Yeah, not on that. Just quite minor points. One about appointment chair and vice. As it stands, once the chair is appointed, that's for the full term of 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I think there ought to be some provision to be able to take the chair out if you so wish. The other one is appointment to vary as representatives, such as the Strategic Planning Group and floods. Perhaps there ought to be an item about that. And the third one about agenda items. I'm surprised that the town plan should take prominence. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but in LWMAG, we haven't done that. It's never come forward. And I sort of would welcome officers to sort of have that as an agenda item on a regular basis. Because correct me, Chris or Merrick, we haven't discussed town plans at our LWMAG, have we? No. So I'm surprised to see it, but glad that it is incorporated.
Thanks, Andrew. Do you want to come back in, Steve?
Yes, please. I think I lost the middle point there, Councillor Thomas, so I'll come back to that if you can. I was scribbling at the time. Yes, the chairing provision there is for each year. It's the annual meeting each year. I was considering there, which would be in line with the other committees. So after your annual meeting of council, you'd then appoint a chair, whoever.
Right. Yeah.
But you're looking for some provision that would remove a chair. We don't generally have that for the other committees. There are ways of doing it for the formal committees in a vote of no confidence. But we could put something in there if it was felt.
Yes, that's fine, thanks. I just took it that was for the term of the full council, 4 or 5 years. You're saying only 1 year. So we can wait 1 year to get rid of the chair.
Yes, just the 1 year. The town plan, I'm wondering, are you looking at the old terms of reference there? Because I didn't think I'd included reference to a town plan. The original terms of reference had things like the town plan and a few strategies and plans that don't exist anymore. And I'd hoped I hadn't carried those over.
I've read it somewhere. I wouldn't like to say where.
I think
I wouldn't dream it.
No, I think it's in the. I have put the original one, the original terms of reference also in the pack, but it's not part of the draft that hoping to take forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
What was the third item?
The middle one was appointment to as a representative to SPGs and floods. Does that need to be incorporated?
I don't think specifically that group. MAGs do have that role where we're increasingly going to the MAGs and asking for a representative, but I think it probably can be done with just in the normal voting procedure. I think if we named specific groups, then we'd soon find the terms of reference to be out of date, like the 2012 ones were. And I think because we often go for a geographic spread of members, the MAGs are fantastic for that. So we've got two main ways, I think. One is politically balanced. We need to get that political aspect. But when something's more geographic, we go to the MAGs, or at least that's the tendency. And I think you would choose whoever you wanted to from your membership to serve on whatever body comes through. I think you're probably getting one or two more requests to MAGs for representatives on different bodies. Scrutiny's using it at the moment to find scrutiny members on their MAGs, but who can therefore represent an area rather than a political group because of the nature. Did that answer your question on that?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gwyneth, do you want to come back in on the point?
Ie, dydy'r cynlluniau lleol ar gyfer trefi ac ardaloedd, dydy heina ddim yn bodoli, ddim chwaneg, sydd yn mymarn ni yn biti, ond dyna ni. Felly dyna pam dydyn nhw'n cael eu cynnwys, fys ni'n dweud. Dwi ddim yn siŵr fod o yn glir iawn efo pwy sy'n gallu gweld y papurau. Efo beth sydd wedi sgwennu lawr fama, byswn ni fel enghraifft yn gallu dangos y papurau i gynghorydd tre, neu clarc cyngor tre.
Diolch, Cynghorydd Censler. A dwi'n gobeithio cadarnhau mwy efo'r manylion ynglyn â hynny. Yn yr cylch gwaith yma, o dan Document Distribution Access, dyn ni'n deud mae gan pob aelod o'r cyngor mynediad trwy'r intranet i pob dogfen sy'n mynd i'r MAGs, ond mae hynny yn rhywbeth mewnol. Ar gyfer pobl allanol, fel arfer, be dyn ni'n gweld, mae bron popeth yn gallu mynd allan. So os di un aelod yn eisiau rhannu rhywbeth, rhyw gwybodaeth neu adroddiad sydd wedi mynd i gyfarfod MAG, fel arfer, mae hynny yn mynd i bod yn ddebyniol, dim problem o gwbl. Ond weithiau, oherwydd bod, os di rhyw cyfarfod yn cael gwybodaeth cyfrinachol, mi fydd rhaid i ni deud, ar y papur yma, mae'n gyfrinachol, a bydd pawb efo, heblaw hynny.
Iawn, diolch.
Diolch. Okay, thank you, Chair. Just going down then to the filming and use of social media during meetings. Obviously, this is going to become more and more of an issue as it becomes easier and easier, and more people sort of film and have their own social media channels and all sorts of things like that. And what I've drafted here, again, it's up to members what rules you want. But I've drafted that filming and use of social media would not be permitted during MAG meetings without the consent of the majority of the members present. They are private meetings, and there will often be some time for, or there will sometimes be some need for confidentiality, which hopefully would be clear on the agenda. And that would also affect, I suppose, whether a MAG permitted filming and distribution on social media of what you are discussing. I've drafted it that it's no unless you say yes, possibly because in my mind there are some problems if generally filming is allowed of each other, which may then be shared on YouTube or wherever. But it's a matter for yourselves really to determine.
Okay, Gary, thanks, Steve. Gary, you want to come in?
Yes, I think Steve's right. It's consistent with the approach we're taking in respect of, I think it was a question to council about the recording of meetings. What we've agreed with group leaders is that I'll draft a paragraph to go into the member officer protocol, which effectively says the same as this, that nobody will be recording meetings other than our formal public meetings, which are webcast, and therefore we keep an archive record. Nobody will be recording our meetings unless the majority of members at the meeting agree. I think that's important, A, for trust and confidence among members, also for officers to understand that when they're giving advice, that they can do that freely without a concern about it being recorded. And also, if we're involved in in virtual meetings, then very often the images that are being used are images which are of a person's home. And whilst when a meeting is a public meeting, and by having your camera on, you're consenting to that. If people think it's a private meeting and it's being recorded without their knowledge, then there could be a concern that perhaps there was a breach of privacy. So this is consistent with that, and it won't be very heavy-handed, but it'll just be a paragraph in the member officer protocol that says if anybody wishes to record a meeting, they should ask, and it would only be recorded with the consent of the majority, unless of course it's a public meeting that we already broadcast and record.
Thanks, Gary. Right, I've got three others now: Christine, Graham, and then Mairead. So, do you want to come in, Christine?
Thank you, Chair. Just making, obviously, with COVID and all the sort of virtual meetings, we've moved completely over to virtual meetings. Should there be something within our terms of reference that we can attend sort of virtually, and moving forward in the future, we're not going to undo these skills we've obtained by joining virtually. So in the future, will there be a mix where some of us are in a room, others are joining virtually, and should that be within the terms of reference, this sort of flexibility? Thank you, Chair.
Get Steve to answer that, and then we'll go on to Graham and then Mairead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Marston. That's an interesting one. Going forward for the main meetings, the public meetings, council, and the larger committees, the way I think it'll work is that when you're able to get back here, you'll have the choice, so you can come in, and those who can't will have the option of joining remotely. And I think sometimes it'll depend on what someone's doing on the day and where they are. So it could be really helpful. At the moment, the setup to merge the meeting of a room with a Zoom meeting can only be done in the chamber. It's quite a complicated process which involves a lot of equipment. So if the meetings were taking place here in this room, then not a problem. We also webcast from here, but we don't have to webcast. We can hold this hybrid meeting with people in here and people on Zoom without webcasting it. So in theory, a MAG meeting could take place here, and you could choose where to join it. That would obviously be out of your MAG area, which has in the past been an issue. It would also be a limitation on when the room's available, I suppose. So if it wasn't in this room, I think you'd have the choice of having it an entirely virtual meeting, or whether having it an entirely room-based meeting. And it might be that that would be your decision, I think, because we can support either. I don't think we can probably merge it satisfactorily. We could do something ad hoc and try to have somebody's laptop show in the meeting room. It might be worth trying, and if it's acceptable, that'd be fine. It would be a bit basic, but if that worked, then that was okay. If you didn't like that, then you'd have to, I think, choose a virtual meeting or a room meeting, and it might be that different MAGs might want to do different things. I can put something into the draft if you want me to put some wording in there.
Do you want something put in, members?
I think it's good to future-proof our meetings, and clearly COVID's not going anywhere fast, is it? So I think we're stuck with restrictions for at least sort of the next 12 months at least. So yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll put something in there to that effect.
Yeah. Graham.
Regard the filming and use of social media
Can't hear you. Can't hear.
Graham's mic's.
Pull your mic down, Graham.
Caught me out again. I was doing so well. As regards the filming and use of social media during meetings, my view is that that section should end at the end of meetings on the first line. It's not permitted. I think that this idea that some things are and some things aren't, and people can take bits out and show it on the internet and all the rest of it. You know, if a meeting's a private meeting, it's a private meeting. That's the end of it. And I think we would be struggling with officers, and I think it's just not the route to go down. You know, there's plenty of opportunities to publish in future in public so that everybody knows what we think. But we don't want other people to snip bits out of videos and put it on their social media to try to make us look stupid. You know, they're private meetings where we're having honest conversations, and I don't think there's any and I can't think of anything which people would want to film in a private meeting to put on the internet. But I don't think that's a route that I personally would like to go down.
Thank you, Graham. Gary, you want to make a comment, and then Meyrick, if after that. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, my comment wasn't about the social media stuff. I mean, I'm probably capable of making myself look stupid without being snipped on social media. But the issue I was speaking about was just to clarify the issue around remote attendance. Members are probably aware, but pre-COVID, the law didn't allow us to do remote attendance unless we had a certain number of people in the room. The emergency regulations for COVID allow us to have completely remote meetings, and the Local Government and Election Wales Act has now made that law, so we would be able to have any combination of meetings.
Breaking up, Gary.
I'll switch I'll switch my camera off. Hopefully that will help. So what the Act now does is it establishes in primary legislation the situation we've had during COVID. So effectively, every member will have the right to attend a meeting virtually, even if everybody else was in a room. So we will be able to have hybrid meetings, but as Steve said, that depends on the technology. So for MAGs, which might be meeting away from Ruthin, it would be a question of whether or not we had appropriate technology in a building somewhere, so video conferencing facilities that might be able to talk to the virtual meeting systems. And there is work going on about new ways of working. There's a member working group, and there's also some work streams for officers to look at how we deal with the workplace in the future and how we facilitate virtual working where people want to engage in that way. Sorry, I don't know if that helps, but
thanks, Gary. Meyrick, and then Joe, you want to come in?
Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Dwi dal ddim yn glir ar recording. I mi, mae recordio rhywbeth yn golygu tap yn eich poced, os liciwch chi, neu ffôn. Di social media ddim yn golygu recordio nac di. Achos, wel, dwi'n meddwl, beth yna. Dyna pam ma'n ni'n codi'r gair recordio. A da chi yn cychwyn hefo the agenda and the meeting documents for each of the MAGs will be available to all members of the council. Pam ddim elected members of the council and staff? Dwi'n cymryd o fanna, da chi'n isio bobl lay members, maen nhw'n galw nhw, de? I fod wedi gwybod beth sy'n mynd ymlaen. Diolch yn fawr.
Joe, do you want to come in, and then we'll get Steve to respond?
Yeah, it's only
Gary as well.
Brief one. Following on from Graham's point about the meetings, I think because one of the phrasing is that the majority of members, and I think that's quite a risky word to use, because if just thinking of in Graham's, if there's only 3 of them, then 2 could say, oh, you've just said something pretty silly or something, and then 2 of them could say, right, we're putting that all over social media. So I think it would have to be all. It would have to include include the person that was possibly making the remarks otherwise in these groups, because there are times where mags, you know, only 5, say out of 7 attend, then somebody could be stitched up if they're thinking it's a private meeting, and then suddenly a couple of members say, oh, so we'd have to be a bit careful with that, I think. So I think it should say all if it was going to be included at all.
Do you want to come in, Steve?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, I can obviously change the draft. It was a thought in my mind, was a majority. I think you would need at least a majority, which is what the draft says. But your point, yes, it might be that those who didn't want it were in the minority, but it might harm them, and that wouldn't be acceptable. I'm not sure, Councillor Timms, if we changed it to, it would need all members to agree, and it would need to be clear that a member was going to record a meeting. Would that be okay for you in terms of the wording? So we wouldn't be saying it isn't allowed in case the MAG members decided that maybe you wanted to and it was acceptable to everybody in that instance. Or so there's the two ways. We can change the draft to say no, recording isn't allowed, or it could be allowed, but only if the permission of all the members present is given for that time. I think those are the two options, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are there any further comments on that, Graham?
Yeah, thanks. I just that would certainly go some way to alleviating my concerns. But let's say that all of the MAG members wanted to record an item, but the officer was not happy about that item being recorded, and it could be that, you know, members were trying to get officers to either commit to things or otherwise in a private meeting, and then be holding them against it. And it just feels awkward to me. That's all.
Have you got any comments from a legal perspective, Gary, on this one?
Well, as a lawyer, I would, and as an officer, I'd probably agree with Graham that, you know, it's just not permitted. I think the draft is trying to give members some flexibility. Clearly, it's a matter for members, and if members' views is that it shouldn't be permitted, then clearly it can be drafted in those terms. That's not what why I had my hand up. The issue was Mayrick's point around recording. A lot of the virtual meeting systems that are available do have a recording function. Steve knows more about it than that, but it's a digital recording, so you can save it onto your device and then clip from it afterwards. And clearly, the concern that was raised was that if that's being done without people's knowledge, then it could create to some difficulties and tension, etc. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing illegal with saying it's not permitted. It's a matter for members.
Okay, thanks. What's the general consensus then about recording? Do we want no recording at all? That makes it very clear. Gwyneth, you've got your hand up.
Well, I would propose, therefore, that we say no recording. Dim recordio o gwbl.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Are we all in agreement on that? Are we all happy with that? Yeah.
This is no recording. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no record. So yeah, okay. So that's good. Thanks very much for that. That's really good. Do you want to carry on, Steve? And
okay, thanks, Chair. We'll change the draft. Just at the end now, I put in a section on the disturbance of meetings. Not that I expect it'll need to be used very much of it all. It's just that there wasn't anything in the original. So if there is a problem, if somebody at the meeting was behaving in a way which, you know, wasn't conducive to holding the meeting, what would you do about it? At the moment, I think MAG meetings, there would be a difficulty in figuring out, first of all, what the rules were. So I've attempted to put some rules which are consistent with the council's standing orders where they apply to the bigger committees. Obviously, they're just in exceptional circumstances, but potentially I thought you might, maybe next term, there might be different dynamics going on in meetings. It might be useful to have a set of rules where MAG members and the chair can refer to and know that they're on firm ground if there was a problem. But obviously, it's your views on the actual wording, what it would mean.
Are there any further comments? Anything else? No. Okay. Oh, Merrick, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I missed you, Merrick.
Yeah, sorry, Cadeirydd. Ges i mateb I y tudalen 21 ynglyn â gair member. All to all members. All elected members. Oes angen, neu ydy hwnnw'n cael ei gywiro yn nes yn y cychwyn?
Diolch, Cynghorydd Davies. Dyn ni'n gallu deud aelodau etholedig, jyst ar gyfer bod yn hollol glir. Does dim aelodau lleg ar y mags, ac mae gennym ni rai cyfetholwyr a rai pwyllgor eraill. Fel mae'n digwydd, dyn ni ddim yn gallu mynd mewn i'r intranet, i'r safle yma beth bynnag. Mae angen offer cyngor I wneud o. So just yn ymarferol, dyn ni ddim yn cael gweld. Ond ie, aelodau etholedig na I ychwanegu hynny. Diolch.
Okay, right. Okay. We've come to the end of that quite lengthy report. Thanks very much, Steve, for that. It's generated some real interest, hasn't it? Do you want to just go, are people happy, the group happy, the committee happy with the way it is? Are there any other comments before we go? We've got a recommendation on 3.1. So before we do that, are there any other comments that we need to make? Christine, you want to come in? Just.
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, really, with regard to the map at the end of the report, that you've got Real South, Real South East and Prestatyn South West, part of the Elwy Mag. Will that be amended, or are they going to join Elwy Mag? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Those were the mistakes. I wasn't intending to redraw the boundaries. It was actually Rhiannon Evans who noticed it and said, oh, there are some areas here which don't look right. These maps go back some time, and yeah, they were only for illustration, so the boundaries remain as they will be. If we use these maps, I'll have them redrawn.
Thank you, Steve. Are you happy with that, Christine? Yeah, you're not going to be transported somewhere else. Yeah, Graham, you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. I was just going to say about a point I made earlier about the Dee Valley Mag perhaps extending a little bit further, and wondered if that could be considered.
Yes, sorry. I thought we'd come to an agreement on that. So. With the 4 members for the Dee Valley and the 2 members who can attend from Ruthin Mag to the Dee Valley, that would be the 6. But you're wanting something more concrete to increase the Dee Valley membership. That's the case, yes.
To be probably 6 members rather than 4, and to include Bryn Eglwys and Errol's area. I'm not sure which one that is.
Yes. Those are the 2 areas that do get invitations to attend the Dee Valley, the Dee Valley meetings. I think by and large that they attend the Ruthin Mag only, and that's a personal choice. If you as a committee wanted to make a recommendation on the Dee Valley Ruthin membership there, obviously we'll take it forward. As it stands, the draft would leave it in that for those 2 Ruthin members, they would be invited, and if they do take part, they've got the full. They can participate fully in any May, but the draft wouldn't sort of compel them as far as we could compel anybody to attend. But if you've got any suggestions on that, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you're kind of landlocked in Dee Valley with other councils, so there's a limit to how many members we can seek for you.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, so are there any other comments? Oh, Rhys, sorry, I missed you out, Rhys.
Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr, Mr Cadeirydd. Yma yn Ninbych, dyn ni yn mwynhau y dembu mag cymaint, dyn ni yn cael rhai ychwanegol o bryd i'w gilydd. Yn Ninbych yn y 6 mis diwetha, dyn ni wedi cael 2 mag anffurfiol. So cwestiwn i Steve ydy hyn, os ydy swyddogion yn gofyn am gyfarfod mag answyddogol, does na ddim pennaeth gwasanaeth yn bresennol, does na ddim gweinyddwr yn bresennol. Dwi'n cymryd bod hyn yn sefyll tu allan i'r hyn dyn ni'n trafod bore yma. Ydw i'n iawn? Diolch, Steve.
Diolch, Carl Thomas. Ydych chi'n hollol iawn. Mae hyn wedi dod yn mwy o bosibilrwydd efo'r cyfarfodydd rhithiol fel hyn. O'r blaen, wrth gwrs, roedd yn anodd cael stafell a pawb mewn ac swyddog i siarad ar y pwnc maen nhw eisiau siarad, ond rwan maen nhw'n gallu anfon gwahoddiad Teams neu WebEx ac mae'n y cyfarfod, ond oes. Maen nhw sefyll tu allan i'r fframwaith yma. Mae'n rhywbeth bydd angen i'r cyngor ystyried i wneud yn siŵr bod does dim gormod o gyfarfodydd yma cacw sydd heb eu cefnogi yn iawn, heb cofnodi wedyn. Ond maen nhw'n mynd i ddigwydd ac mae'n y lle ar eu cyfynyw, ond be dyn ni'n sôn am yma ydy'r cyfarfodydd mag. Y lles dwi'n meddwl ydy cyfarfodydd efo'r aelodau mewn ardal y mag, ond nid cyfarfodydd y mag ei hunan.
Okay, you're happy with that, Rhys, aren't you? Of course.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Well, thanks very much for that. It's been a very, very useful discussion and very interesting. So we'll go to the recommendations, and that's 3.1, that the Democratic Services Committee considers the draft member area group terms of reference Appendix 1 and, subject to comments, endorses the draft for further consultation. I think the further consultation would satisfy you probably, Andrew, as well, wouldn't it, that it will go out now to possibly the MAGs and other bodies within the council. Is that the expectation, Steve? Yeah. Okay. So are we happy to endorse this and vote for it to go forward? Yep. Okay, I think that's pretty unanimous. Okay, thanks very much indeed. We'll go on to agenda item 6 now, which is the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales. And Steve's going to lead on that one. Are you okay to continue for a minute, Steve? Are you?
Yes, if the committee does, yes.
Are we happy to continue?
Yeah.
Nobody wants a break at the moment. Yeah.
No.
You're all right. Okay. Well, let's carry on then. Thanks very much. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So we haven't broken you yet, so we'll try with this one. It's a bit dry, this report. It's an annual report. It used to go to full council, but it doesn't need to. And we had confirmation from the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales. I'll just call them the panel. That's the body some of you will have met with. I know you have, Chair. And they set the salary levels and the rules around the salaries. I think for us, that's the main impact they have. So the annual report each year says what it's going to be for the next year. There have been times after austerity, during the austerity years, when they made no increases to the basic salaries or the senior salaries and the salaries, but they've started trying to do it modestly more recently, because members' salaries have fallen behind from where the panel wished them to be. So we have what they call determinations. It's their decisions on what Denbighshire can pay. It's outlined in the report. I think perhaps the headlines, it's all pretty modest in this report this time. This year, as shown in paragraph 4.4, the panel has decided that each member will get an increase of £150 to their basic salary. And this year, senior salary holders, which are cabinet members and the committee chairs who do get a salary for that chair, for that committee, because not all do, they've got a modest increase as well on top of the basic 150. There aren't too many other changes in the salaries, to be honest, but it's there for your information. The council has to pay the basic salaries as shown. Members, if they want to refuse any of their salary, and I'm not suggesting any should, would have to put it in writing to us and saying how much, if any. So that's a ruling where a council can't determine for all of its members what would happen to the salaries. It's an individual member's choice, and the council will follow the determinations otherwise, the salary levels otherwise. There is some information in the report about those salary levels. Appendix 1 shows the senior salary levels, which are inclusive of the basic salary. So it basic plus the senior equals what's in Appendix 1. And there's some information about how the panel configures its rulings, if you like. And the annual report itself, it's the big document at the end, which gives all the details. Previously, we found that members have been interested in what happens to the city, town and community councils. And I've just included some small summaries there in the covering report. And the full detail is in the panel's annual report at the appendix. Other than that, Chair, I think it's for information, but the recommendations do outline that the panel is consistent in asking councils to review how much support we give to members. So putting aside the issue of salaries, which are largely determined by them, they do urge councils that where we see that a councillor needs to have A, B or C in order to do their role, that the councils should be providing A, B and C, and at no charge. So for example, you've been provided with laptops. We would not be able to legally deduct from your salaries the cost of a laptop, because we see that as essential equipment you need to undertake your roles as councillors. There may be many other things that we see would be useful, but if we see it's essential, then equipment that we might provide, we will have to fund as a council and not try to deduct salaries, which is illegal. And so there's the debate about, are we providing what councillors need? And the technology is changing and the way we're using it is now changing. There is a working group looking at this, the new ways of working group for members. And one of the work streams is looking at the technology to take into the new council in May 2022. I think it's too early to say what they'll come up with at the moment, because it's only just sort of getting into its stride. But that will be one of the things that they'll be looking at. And the panel is keen that councils do, through this committee, at least consider what level of support is given to members. So other than that, Chair, it's for comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thanks for that. Members, comments? No? Everybody content? Oh, Graham, you want? Do you want to come and have a?
Yeah. I was just going to say about the group that you referred to, Steve. Can you tell me who's on it? The one that's looking at future needs of the next council.
Now you'll be testing my memory. It's led by the lead member, Councillor Maynon. I know Councillor James, our chair today, is on it by virtue of being chair of this committee. And then there are 2 representatives from each of the political groups. And I can only remember a selection of them. I think Councillor Merrick Davis is on it from memory. I think Councillor Mellor, you might be on it. Yes. So it's 2 members from each political group, chair of Democratic Services Committee and the lead member. And the officer support has been given by Alan Smith, ICT officers. I've been part of the main group, but the work is now splintered into 2 streams. One looking at the technology that needs to be used, and the other looking at more of the support, which is around training and advice and so on, to help to really get around some of the difficult problems that members, because we're looking at the member stream now, sometimes find when trying to operate remotely and with new technology, particularly as we're trying to push that way as well, aren't we, to get the benefits out.
Thank you.
You happy with that, Graham? Yeah. Anybody else want to make any comments? No? Okay. Do we want to go to the recommendations then, which are in 3.1 and 3.2. 3.1 is that the committee notes the determination of the Independent Remuneration Panel for Wales for 2021-2022 in respect of the payment, salaries and payments to co-opted members. On 3.2, that the committee considers the level of support provided to members to carry out their duties with regard to determinations 9, 10 and 40 of the annual report. Are we all in agreement with that? We're all happy? Yeah, everybody happy with that? No absentees or dissenters in any way? No, good. Okay, thanks very much for that. Do you want to carry on, Steve? Gary, we're now on to agenda item 7. Do you want to have, anybody want to have a break, or do you want to continue?
I'd like a break if that's okay, Chair.
Sorry?
I'd like a break if that's okay, please.
Okay, shall we, you're happy with that? Yeah, everybody wants a break, okay. What, 10 minutes? 10 minutes, should we meet just 25 to? 25.
We have that effect on people, Chair.
Okay, we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thanks, committee. Are you okay, everybody? Everybody refreshed and I'm very envious, Christine, of your rather large mug. I hope it's coffee. Oh, dear. Okay, shall we get started then? Everybody happy? Everybody back? Yeah, good. Thanks for return. You've not been put off too much yet by Stephen. You'll be totally enlightened by Gary now, because he's going to do agenda item number 7, which is the draft revised guidance on the Code of Conduct. And there are pages 115 to page 260. And there will be questions and an exam at the end, of course. So, okay, Gary, do you want to
Chair,
get us started, please? Thank you.
Chair, could I just say, would you mind if I left the meeting? Because we've already discussed this at the standards meeting, so all the comments have been made there. So I'll leave the meeting if that's okay with you.
You need to make sure that the committee will agree. No, of course, you know that's fine, Andrew. If you're comfortable and happy to leave, we'll still be quorate. So yeah.
That's okay, right.
Yes,
Thanks for your
time.
I was going to apologise to Andrew that he's heard all this before last Friday. So,
okay.
Yes, Chair. As Councillor Thomas just told you, we took this report to Standards Committee last Friday, and really have taken the opportunity, because the meeting of Democratic Services followed so quickly, just to put it on the agenda, just to seek some additional views. Just as a bit of background, the members are aware of the Code of Conduct, obviously. The Ombudsman did, probably about 8 years ago now, introduce some guidance documents in respect of the Code of Conduct, which tried to flesh out the terms of the code of conduct, give some sort of context and explanation, and provide some examples about the standards of behaviour that the Ombudsman expected, and where members had fallen short in various parts of Wales, some examples of how they'd fallen short and what happened as a result of it. The guidance was last updated in 2016, and at that time the Ombudsman split the guidance into two separate documents, one for members of principal councils such as county and county borough councils, fire and rescue authorities, etc., and one for town, city and community councillors. The documents are similar, but on one for county councillors this meeting.
Gary, you're breaking up.
I'll get rid of my camera.
Thank you.
Do apologise. Is that better? Yeah. So the Ombudsman last updated it in 2016, and they've decided to refresh it again. It is not a new document as such. It's basically given a refresh to the old document. There are a number of changes which I'll just run through, but I won't be running through every change because a lot of it is just where the text has been extended or perhaps made a little bit more accessible. The main feature of this document is that there are a lot more examples than there were in the previous document. So we know that when we do training sessions, members very often tell us that the examples are a better way of understanding the code and its application. The main changes to the document, I think if you run through to page 130 of your pack, is the first change where the Ombudsman refers to a number of legal precedents. So since he did his last guidance, he's decided to set out a little bit more detail there. The first High Court case was one that involved a community councillor who made satirical or mocking remarks about his council and members of the council. And he was investigated by the Ombudsman, taken to a standards committee. He was censured. He appealed that to the adjudication panel for Wales. They upheld the censure, and then he appealed to the High Court on the basis that for him to be expressing political views and then to be sanctioned effectively by an emanation of the state was an unlawful interference in his right to freedom of expression. The High Court held in that case that freedom of expression was more protected, if you like, in the political arena than maybe it would necessarily be elsewhere. However, there was a balance to be struck, and that it would be possible for members to express themselves in such a way that would be something that merited a sanction, but that in that particular case, the court didn't think that councillor had crossed the threshold. And the second case there was an appeal against the decision of the adjudication panel, which related really much to bullying behaviour by a councillor, attempting to compromise the impartiality of officers. And the court were keen to ensure that members' behaviour, particularly towards junior officers, should not be intimidatory, bullying, or seeking to compromise their impartiality. The main guidance that the Ombudsman gives on things like bullying in respect of officers is that he's quick to he doesn't condone the bullying of anybody, but that members should have particular regard to the way in which they speak to more junior members of staff. Senior officers are considered to have a position and a platform in which they can they're better able to defend themselves. I always point out in the training at this point that doesn't mean that it's a green light to bully me, but it just means that I've probably got more of a platform or more authority within the organisation to be able to stand my ground, if you like. The The next sort of change to the guidance comes on page 135 in your pack, and that effectively is a technical change. The adjudication panel for Wales has been given the power to make an interim suspension on a member. So effectively, if the Ombudsman was investigating a complaint about a member, and they felt that during the course of the investigation, the evidence was fairly overwhelming and the thing was really serious, then they could produce an interim report which would be presented to the adjudication panel for Wales, and the adjudication panel for Wales would be able to make an interim suspension. So in other words, they would suspend the member pending the completion of the investigation and then any final hearing. That's not something that's available to standards committees. It's only for the more serious cases which end up before the adjudication panel for Wales. So there's reference to that in his guidance. On page 144, there's some additional text just to re-emphasize the point about Article 10 of the European Convention on Human Rights and freedom of expression. Effectively, the guidance is that politicians should have a thicker skin, or should develop a thicker skin when it comes to matters of respect between each other. The Ombudsman's view is that members should always be respectful, but he understands that sometimes in the political arena, passions can be aroused and people can say things which they may subsequently regret. But the important thing is that it should never degenerate into personal abuse or personal comment. It should always be a debate about people's ideas or opinions. There's specific reference on page 147 to the position of more junior officers, again re-emphasizing the point that you should be particularly careful in how you address junior officers and ensure that you treat them with respect and don't do anything which might be construed as bullying or harassment. Other sort of changes which are additions are on page 155, where the Ombudsman has introduced a new paragraph which makes specific reference to the reporting of criminal behaviour. So what the code requires basically at paragraph 6 is that members should report any conduct by another member that you believe or might reasonably believe would involve criminal behaviour. You should use either the council's whistleblowing policy, confidential reporting policy, or you should make that report directly to the proper statutory authority. Again, as a reminder that members shouldn't make vexatious or malicious complaints, but if in doubt, they should seek advice from the monitoring officer. That's a new paragraph. Effectively, it's because the code says that members should report any breach of the code that they feel has been committed by another member to the monitoring officer, who can give them advice as to how that can be resolved and whether it needs to be reported to the Ombudsman. But clearly there may be instances of criminal behaviour where it may be more appropriate for the member to use the confidential reporting procedure or to go to the proper statutory authority. The rest of the document really is just more clarification in the text, more examples. I think the views of the Standards Committee were that it was an accessible document, that although it was a lengthy read, it was quite an easy read, that it did provide a bit more flesh on the bones of the Code of Conduct and made it easier for members to understand. One of the issues that they felt perhaps should merit further coverage in the guidance is social media. More and more, when complaints are made to the Ombudsman, they often relate to comments or content of members' social media activity, and that whilst the guidance does say that the code applies to members just as much when they're on social media as when they're standing in the council chamber, etc., that they thought maybe there should be more guidance or more specific reference to separate guidance in respect of the use of social media. They were pleased that at certain parts of the code, the Ombudsman has emphasised his expectation that members will attend training, and he makes reference to the inclusion of amendments to the code to require training, which is something that this council did. I think we were the first council to do that, and he would encourage others to do the same. The consultation exercise is different to the sorts of consultations that we routinely get from the Welsh Government. So we don't have a big long list of questions that the Ombudsman wants answers to. So I think in the report, what I'm really looking for is if members look at it from the point of view perhaps of a new member coming onto the council, trying to understand what their obligations are under the Code of Conduct, do you think that it's pitched at the right level of complexity? Any aspects of the guidance you think could be improved upon, and whether there's anything missing from the guidance that members may find useful. As I said in the report, we use this document as part of our training, and clearly the Ombudsman wants to get it in place before the new cohort of councillors are elected in 2022, and we're being asked to comment by the 21st of March. So really it was just an information gathering exercise to ask you for your views on the document.
Okay, thanks for that, Gary. It's very interesting. Thank you. Members, any comments?
Hi, Chair. I have a comment, please.
You carry on.
Yeah, I was just reading on the Code of Conduct, and it refers to someone as weak. I find that a little offensive, if I'm honest, and I think we could maybe possibly choose a better term of phrase. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Any other comments? Are you noting these down, Gary? Are you?
Will be, yes, and I'll be relying on the committee clerk as well to pick up the things I've missed.
Okay, you're happy with that? Yep. Sorry. Oh, Rod. Oh, and of course, Rod was minuting. He's not here, is he?
Yeah.
But working from home. It's all right. I'll get into this eventually. You know, being back in the office, as they say, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Okay. Any other comments from Graham?
Thanks, Chair. Just the first case that Gary mentioned on page 129, I think it was, about the difference between political comment and personal comments and so on, and developing thick skins. I just find it really regrettable that this has to be addressed, and I'm not happy that it's okay just to say, oh well, if you're in a public role, then you have to have a thick skin and you just have to take the rough with the smooth. And I don't like that at all. I don't think we stand much of a chance against the High Court, but I think it's a really wrong way to go, to say, oh well, you just have to put up with it. We shouldn't put up with it. We shouldn't put up with abuse and unpleasantness. And you know, I accept that that's part of the role, and I can accept it. But my family are not happy about it. I can tell you, they really do not like the fact when people start saying unpleasant things. And we've got a local election. We had a vacancy on the town council, and I spoke to a few people that wanted to stand, but they said, yeah, we want to do the role, but we don't want all this rubbish that goes on Facebook and stuff and all that sort of thing. And that is really regrettable when we get to that stage and we're told, well, just get a thicker skin. And I'm not very happy about that, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. I think it's a very important point. You know, it's about, for me, it's about respecting people, isn't it? Full stop, irrespective of what role they're in or anything else. And that's for me, it's always been a bit of a challenge. Gary wants to come in, and then I think you'll want to comment, Christine, as well. Yeah. Okay, Gary. Well,
do you want to let Christine comment and I'll deal with all the comments afterwards? Is that, if that's easier, Chair?
Okay, if you're happy with that, Christine.
Thank you, Chair. On page 55, it says if you breaches of a code of conduct, if you reasonably believe that a breach of a code has occurred, you must report it to the monitoring officer, and you need to have supporting evidence. Can you not, as a councillor, challenge that individual who you feel is breaching the code of conduct, or do you just sort of let it happen, observe it, and then report it later? To me, that doesn't seem, surely there should be some sort of terms of reference of what to do when you see a situation unfold in front of you and you can't address it there and then. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Do you want to come in, Gary?
Yeah, sure. I've switched my camera off, Chair, just in case I go all Dalek again.
Okay.
If I deal with the thicker skins issue first, I have to sort of, if you like, give the Ombudsman a little bit of a not a pass here, but just to explain the context of that comment. The Ombudsman fought that case and took it to the High Court and went down quite spectacularly in costs, as I recall. It cost a lot of money. The broader point the High Court was trying to make was that in terms of political expression, it was a slippery slope if people in the political arena felt that they were being hindered in expressing themselves. The High Court was clear that there was a line to be crossed, but in that particular case, that individual councillor hadn't crossed the line. So it wasn't, if you like, carte blanche for anybody to say whatever they like. It was just that I've seen some of the comments in that case, and to be honest with you, they weren't at the higher end, and I don't think in this current climate that they would probably get as far as they did. In terms of the Ombudsman's approach to this, the Ombudsman is clear that members should treat everybody with respect and consideration, and he expects them to deal with each other in a respectful way. I think the marker the Ombudsman's putting down is, and it's one of the things that in the end almost brought the ethics regime in England at one point. The Standards Board for England was sort of scrapped because it fell under the weight of an awful lot of tit-for-tat complaint that was being made by members. Councillor A said something beastly about Councillor B. Councillor C, who was a friend of Councillor A, made a complaint about Councillor B, and then Councillors D, E and F all made a complaint about Councillors B and A. And the way the Standards Board for England was constructed was that they had no discretion in the treatment of complaints. They had to investigate every complaint, and they ended up with a single comment ending up with myriad complaints, and they sort of collapsed under the burden of them. The Ombudsman has always had discretion to determine whether or not he will investigate a complaint that's been made by a member, and he approaches it with a two-stage test, which is, on the face of it, is there any evidence that what is complained of has been done, and that if it had been done, it would be a breach of the code of conduct? And then secondly, is it in the public interest for the Ombudsman to investigate it? And when the Ombudsman speaks on these issues at conferences, etc., he's very keen to point out that he gets a finite resource from the Welsh Government to conduct his work, that his area of work spans not just the code of conduct, but obviously complaints about public bodies, including sort of health boards, etc. And the example he very often gives is that if he's got a limited budget, then the people would expect him to perhaps investigate a misdiagnosis of cancer, etc., or something like that, more readily than Councillor A being a bit rude to Councillor B. So he doesn't minimise it. And what he does emphasise throughout the work of his office and through the guidance is the importance of local resolution. And I think that touches a little bit on the point that Christine was making, which is that for some types of complaint, particularly where it's a councillor complaining about another councillor, the Ombudsman would hope and expect that councils have their own internal mechanisms for trying to deal with those things. And we do have, we call it the self-regulatory protocol. It involves group leaders. And on the, I think 2 or 3 times it's been engaged, whilst I've been monitoring officer, it's always resulted in an apology and a moving on, rather than getting into a sort of a long formal process. So I think in terms of thicker skins, the Ombudsman's clear people should treat each other with respect. The problem, I think, for the example that you raised, Graham, about people maybe want to stand, but they see all the stuff that goes on social media. The code of conduct only applies to members. So whilst you're obliged to treat everybody with respect and consideration, the public are not subject to the same code of conduct or the same sort of sanctions regime for breaching that. And therefore, the Ombudsman doesn't have any jurisdiction over how the public, if you like, engage in public discourse. This is about councillors dealing with other councillors. The Local Government Association has launched a civility and public life campaign, and we did take a report on that to the Standards Committee last year. I'm waiting to see, if you like, what the outcome of that was, because it was at very early stages and they were going to develop some guidance materials, etc., for people who are engaged in public life. Again, you get back to freedom of expression. Members of the public have their human rights to freedom of expression, and it's always a balance in a sort of democratic society as to where the law seeks to inhibit that. But it's a live issue, and I understand the point that you're making. In terms of challenging poor behaviour, there's nothing in the code of conduct that prevents you from doing that. And I think very often it may be that as a councillor, you can see that one of your colleagues may be perhaps overstepping the mark or missing out on declaring something, and you think, oh, perhaps they. Yeah. I think a quiet, friendly word with somebody just to give them that bit of advice, I think that's perfectly well within your role. You can't make people do things, but I think that as a group, if you like, if all members were sort of looking out for each other on the basis that someone might inadvertently breach the code, or somebody might have gone a bit too far, and you might want to just sort of give them some advice or have a friendly word, that there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's very consistent with the Ombudsman's theme, really, of that his office should only really be getting involved in investigating the most serious matters. So his priorities will always be corruption, discrimination, bullying and harassment, those sorts of things. The declaration of interest falls into that, of course. Where members are falling out, then he'll expect us to try and resolve that locally and try and mediate or deal with it in that way. And I've been involved in a couple of mediations in community councils, very informally, but just sort of getting people to see each other's point of view and then agreeing to sort of shake hands and move on type thing. Not that they can shake hands at the moment, but you know what I mean. Hope that helps.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Gary. That's very, very useful. Very good. Any other members got comments to make? Gwyneth.
Well, yes, I think that although criticism can be hurtful and yes, it can perhaps hurt your families, I think it is all part of the territory that we just have to accept. Maybe I've been here 25 years now. It's you get used to it, or you don't get used to it, but you just disregard it, and you have to accept it.
Thanks, Gwyneth. Any other comments? Anybody? No. Okay. Well, that was very useful. So, should we go to the recommendation, which is 3.1? And that is that the committee considers and comments on the draft revised guidance contained in appendices 1 and 2 in order that a consultation response can be formulated. So we're happy with what we've said, and there will be a response, and so thanks very much for that. Thank you. Need again. We're on agenda item 8, which is the forward work programme. So you're going to come in on that, Steve, aren't you?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
The next meeting is on the 1st of October. So it's a fair way away, which is why it's a verbal report, just to see if there are items now that you want us to look at for them. I think, speaking generally, with the new council then approaching, then it may be a good time to look at the new council arrangements that you'll be wanting to put forward, perhaps in terms of looking at where the council is at with equipment, support and training for new members. During the May period next year, it'll be an intensive period for new members, and I mean new members and returning members, because obviously there'll be extensive training for everybody involved in the new council, and we'll need to develop that package. So it would be handy, I think, to know your views and where you'd want us to look. With the way we can do things now, the way we deliver training will probably be a lot different to what it was 4.5 years ago. And again, views on that would be really helpful so that we know we're actually going at it in the right way. Perhaps as well as that, if you're happy to take that item, and it may be broken down into more than one report, depending on exactly what's in front of us at the time. There may be some other issues pertinent to the time, but given that we're a fair way off, so if the committee is happy, perhaps if I liaise with the chair closer to the time to agree the agenda. Graham Timms.
I just seem to remember that at our very first meeting, going back 4 years or whenever it was, which has flown by, we were talking about diversity of representation in the council, and I thought there was a programme that was going to go ahead, and I just wondered if that was something that we could have a look at.
Come back in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, diversity will be a topic. The Welsh Government's been very keen on promoting and supporting efforts to increase the diversity, to make council chambers more representative, as they put it, of their constituents. And there are national groups and bodies and efforts. Before the last local government elections, there was a great deal of effort put into mentoring, for example. So those who were intending or interested in being candidates were provided with support. Some councillors of the time across Wales put time into mentoring potential candidates. It does obviously need to go through the ballot box. So many of those mentored obviously did not actually get elected. Some did, some didn't. And that obviously is democracy. But we can bring you an update and the issues about diversity as they are close to October, if that's what you're interested in, Councillor Timms. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other items, anything that comes readily to mind? Gwyneth and then Rhys.
Yes, can I just say I must apologise. I have to leave this meeting because I have another one at midday. So bye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gwyneth. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Rhys, you want to...
Thank you, Chair. And I was just going to follow on from what Councillor Timms said there. I think if the council has firmed up these ideas about virtual meetings and the mix of meetings, then that is something which would go a long way towards increasing the diversity of people that are attracted to the council, because the possibility of evening meetings, the possibility of people working flexibly from home and being able to fit in council meetings. If we knew where we were going by then with virtual meetings and so on, then it would possibly encourage people who are normally at work and wouldn't consider coming on the council. So I think those two things go hand in hand, increasing the diversity and also working out the direction of travel with virtual meetings and attendance and so on. So it's just a suggestion. Thank you, Chair. Diolch yn fawr.
Thanks, Rhys. Gary, you want to respond? It
was just really to agree with that. And one of the there are a couple of things around diversity in the Local Government and Elections Wales Act. One is extending the sorts of leave that members can take in terms of carers, adoption, parental, etc., to more or less reflect the position of members of staff in terms of those things. And the other thing, of course, is that there will be a duty for leaders to have regard to Welsh Government guidance on equality and diversity. That's a specific duty that's imposed by the legislation. And I think that it's not just people of working age in respect of virtual meetings, it's people who might have caring and other responsibilities that they don't need to spend half a day driving from one part of the county to Ruthin to attend a meeting. They can just fit it into their day. So hopefully that would make it more accessible to more people.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, are there any other comments? Anybody else want to make comment? Okay. So are we happy then with the way we're looking forward in October? And as things develop, things may come up and we'll go through Steve and I, and we'll discuss and put on the agenda. Are you all happy with that? Yeah, can I have a show of hands for that? Yeah, good. Thank you very much indeed. I think that brings us to the end of our meeting. So it's been a very courteous, well-behaved meeting as always. So thanks very much. It does make my life easy. I must admit it has been a bit of a challenge being in a room with my officer colleagues here, but which has been really good. And thanks everybody for their input. Thanks for the reports. It's been very, very good. And I hope. Sorry. Hugh, you want to say something here?
Well, I was only going to say, I think I've just demonstrated the practicalities of remote meetings. I've spent most of this meeting hopping in out of the car in the high street in Llandudno Junction. so
I did
bar my half hour in the dentist chair. So yeah, I mean, flexible remote working, obviously it can be helpful under certain circumstances.
Yeah, well, it's good to see you. Yeah, good. I won't ask you what the weather's like, but anyway.
Oh,
so
well, it's cold and windy here.
Right. Okay. So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for your time and really, really good meeting. I really appreciated it. So thanks very much. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Chair. Can we all go off and make a hairdresser's appointment for Monday now?
Monday, well, yeah. Mine's on Tuesday, week on Tuesday. So